Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting dodo birds, leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do. To that like button, shouts to Brandon Davies. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, please also do that while you're here. Let's get into Norlander. I see your Bears logo. Congratulations on an early morning victory. I saw some of that, I think.
Well, listen, Bears are off to a 4-2 start, and yeah, things are nice and fun in the household here. Actually, on that note, real quick, as we get ready to dive in the SEC, I have noticed something. Are you superstitious? I want to say that for like the past 4 or 5 episodes, you've worn that Mets hat. Is this with intention or is this coincidence?
Coincidence. I have no superstitions. I don't believe in anything like that. Like any of the don't change your underwear or socks or like got to sit on this part of the couch or these colors or whatever. I don't subscribe to any of it. I think I can't imagine I'm important enough to dictate the outcomes of games based on colors that I wear or anything like that. So no superstitions whatsoever. I think this would be what you call late. Maybe it's just lazy.
No, I didn't know if you were going with the same specific hat, although that didn't really work last night, but that's another topic altogether. We gear up for game 2, baby.
If I were superstitious, I would not be wearing this hat today because it is what I was wearing all last night up until I shoved my head into my pillow and forced myself to go to sleep.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, listen,
I made myself go to sleep.
Yeah, I'm sure. SEC preview. It's a huge Monday, by the way. We've got the AP Top 25 came out. We'll reference some of that, obviously, in the course of this SEC preview episode. The Ken Pom rankings have gone live, 12 hours ago or whatever. So big time stuff. And now we get to previewing the SEC with to me, it's set up to be a tremendous year for this conference.
It should be awesome. So, as you know, the Big 12 has consistently rated as the best conference in men's college basketball for a while now. In fact, it's been rated number 1 for each of the past 3 seasons over at KenPom.com. But those days are over now, Norlander, because over at KenPom.com, the top-ranked conference right now is the SEC. It just means more, even in men's basketball. Norlander, do you agree? Let's start there. Do you agree with the sentiment that the SEC is the best men's basketball conference in the country right now?
All right, so this is well, okay, right now,
like right in this moment.
Do you align right now with also what we think will be the reality on Selection Sunday? Do you think it'll rate that well? Because I still would lean Big 12. I got to see it not be the case, as I noted earlier on Monday on social media. Since 2014, the Big 12 is rated as number 1 at KenPom every year that wasn't affected by COVID. Only in 2019-20, which was obviously cut early, so we didn't have the tournament and all the data that comes in there. And then 2020-2021. Those are the only 2 seasons that the Big 12 did not finish at number 1 at KenPom. In fact, it was number 2 both of those years. However, this is one of my storylines here. So we'll go even early on this before the break here. It is, will this be the best SEC season ever? And I mean ever. It has finished number 2 at KenPom a few times, and now we see it most likely vying with the Big 12 for supremacy. I think it's got a chance to put forth a quarter of the league as a viable, at least, Final Four contender. You've got big coaching names that abound in this conference, obviously. You've got guys like Oates, Barnes, Calipari, Pearl, Chris Beard, Porter Moser. What do they all have in common? They've all made the Final Four. So I think the potential for this to be the best SEC season ever is one of the dominant storylines. It also, we mentioned the AP Top 25 came out on Monday afternoon. 9 teams from the SEC are in the AP rankings heading into the season, which is a conference record and is certainly notable. The Big 12 has 6. No one else has more than 4. And when you take all that into account, yeah, it's got a real chance here. And I'm here very much to listen to the conversation and the potential that the SEC heading into the season is a better league than the Big 12. I think it has more bottom end depth potentially, but yeah, I think it's going to be pretty intriguing. What about you?
I've written about this previously in the offseason. I just sort of noticed at some point, man, I've got a bunch of SEC teams in the top 25 and won 7. And that was more than any other league. Like the AP poll, the Big 12, I also had 6. But the SEC was 7 was the most. Well, they got 9 in the AP poll. And have you seen Jerry Palm's projected bracket for the 2025 NCAA tournament? If not, trivia time. How many SEC schools does Jerry Palm, as of this moment, have making the 2025 NCAA tournament?
I'll give you the guess. As a reminder, everyone listening and watching, we'll obviously make our predictions on how many are getting in later in the show. It sounds like you're setting me up for 10. Now, with that in mind, as I was starting to look at all these teams and these conferences, remember, there's no more Pac-12. At least now there's not. We lost a high major conference, so these conferences are going to get more teams into the tournament. And I think you're teeing me up. I'm going to say Palm has double-digit 10 teams in the field.
11.
Oh my God.
11. It is the 10 that were the top 10 on my ballot that I submitted for our SEC preview. That's Alabama, Auburn, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas, Florida, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and then the one that I wouldn't have in right now that Palm does, Missouri. He has Missouri.
Missouri over Georgia. Okay. Big time stuff there, man. Yeah, I know. Listen, exciting days ahead. I mean, we also released our preseason All-America teams, which we'll get to on a separate episode in terms of our own ballots and all that kind of stuff. But Mark Sears was a unanimous pick for a preseason All-American. Every single voter in the CBS Sports conglomerate that put toward their ballots had him on as a first teamer, and that makes sense, obviously, with what he did. So yeah, no, huge year yet ahead for the SEC. And I'm not going to say it's been a long time coming, because it hasn't been. The league has been performing better and better. But as you well know, and I think we've even talked about this a little bit, not necessarily last year, the year before, but maybe circa like 2018, 2019, when we did our preseason SEC previews, there was a point where the SEC had something of a crisis going on when it came to scheduling, when it came to performance. I remember they hired Dan Leibovitz, who's now with the Big East, but they brought him aboard to try and solve how the league could improve its stature overall within the hierarchy of college basketball. I mean, in the 2020 season, the SEC was the 6th ranked team at Ken Pom, and it had it from 2012 through 2017, the league failed to get more than 5 bids in any of those tournaments. And in most of those years, it only had 3 teams represented. Obviously, that's been a big change as of late. 8 bids last year, 8 bids the year before. And I have very high confidence that it's going to be more than 8 when we get to 2025.
I do too. I do think it will be the best league in the country. And it's just a reminder of something I've written about before, we've talked about before. It's a story that I was told secondhand, like I didn't witness it, but it's been told to me by enough people, I believe it to be true, that the late SEC commissioner, Mike Slive, once the SEC network was becoming a thing, went to his chancellors, presidents, athletic directors, and just said, listen, the most inventory we're going to have for this network is men's basketball. The best quality and most. I mean, we'll have a football game, but there ain't as many of them. We need men's basketball to be a priority in this conference now. You all are going to have more money than you know what to do with, quite literally. Keep in mind, this is a conversation a long time ago, but You're going to have more money than you know what to do with. If you have the right coach, pay to keep him. If you don't have the right coach, fire your coach and go get the right coach. Increase facilities, do all that. We need to be not just the best football league in the country, but the best basketball league in the country. And we might finally have gotten there. If I'm being honest, it would have taken longer than I thought, because I wrote that column a long time ago. I thought we would get to this day a little more quickly, but I don't think it's hard to figure out what's happening here. They have a lot of money in the SEC. Today, a lot of money is what it takes to build basketball rosters. And they also have the resources to go out and hire, some of the very best basketball coaches working in college athletics. So when you can hire the best coaches and buy the best players, I'm not even saying that as a joke, but when you can hire the best coaches and buy the best players, this is what it looks like.
No doubt about it. Well, that's one of my 5 biggest storylines. Obviously, we'll get to the 4 other ones right here after the break. GP, I'm gonna take us right into this commercial, and we'll get to what teams we think are making the tournament. Give a little bit of a nugget on every single team in the SEC, and obviously get to our Conference Player of the Year awards. But first, Nada, can we get a word from our partners?
It's a team almost too good to be true.
You guys ain't ready for us.
Kick your game day off right as the Tops team tackles all the biggest headlines around the league.
Who's got 2 thumbs and loves this next segment?
Sunday mornings on CBS Sports Network.
All right, every conference preview has Norlander's 5 storylines.
Yep.
Let's hear them.
All right. Well, we already did storyline 1. Will this be the best SEC season ever? Number 2, pretty obvious here. Cal at Arkansas, and I'm going to split the Cal and Pope ones here. Cal at Arkansas. Him leaving Kentucky, how this goes in year 1, and how long it lasts. These teams, by the way, Kentucky and Arkansas play once. They are scheduled to play once. That's February 1st at Rupp Arena. Arkansas has almost an entirely new roster. Not entirely. Trevon Brazile is back there. GP, remind the listeners where you have Arkansas ranked or not ranked in the preseason for anyone catching in and catching up right now. In Monday's AP poll, I'm so happy we can do this now that stuff is getting released. So on Monday's AP release, Arkansas was 16th, according to human voters. Ken Palm has Arkansas at 25, and this is my only one I will spoil. I've finished my top 101 rankings more than a week ago. I also, just like Pomeroy, there's only 3 teams in our top 40 that are the same. Arkansas is one of them. I also have Arkansas 25th in my rankings.
I have Arkansas. I'm a little higher on them than you are. I have them 13th in the top 25 and 1, which represents 4th in the SEC behind Alabama, Auburn, and Texas A&M. But I got Tennessee right behind them at number 14.
Arkansas having Janelle Davis, DJ Wagner, similar style players. I'll be intrigued to see what happens there. Janelle Davis averaged 18 points a game last season. Wagner was outshined and frankly underperformed versus his reputation coming into college there. You also bring Boogie Fland on board. He's going to be a backcourt player to keep an eye on. They got Carter Knox, who's a newbie there. Jonas Adu was a big-time portal pickup, the Tennessee big, who I think is going to be crucial around the rim. There's a lot of intrigue with Arkansas, and just to see, I don't know, GP, just to see how this is going to go and how it's going to look with him staying in the conference, but at a new spot. I still haven't seen him call the Hogs yet. I kind of want to still see that go down there. I'm intrigued by all of it there.
Please tell me you have seen they brought the Slobber Hog back.
Oh, thank you for, you know what? That's not on my prep sheet here. Thank you for reminding me of this, because I think this podcast, and much more you than me, at least 25% of the credit for making this a thing. I mean, we have been talking about the Slobber Hog and pulling up from the snout for years now, and just a massive, massive upgrade that they're going to have that on as the logo on the floor now.
It's terrific. I'm a neighbor with Arkansas. I'm a neighbor with the natural state. We share a border. We share.
By the way, that's one of the worst nicknames. Listen, I love all things natural, but the natural state, it just doesn't have that ring. It should be the Slobber Hog state is what it should be.
How much time have you spent in Arkansas?
I went there last year for the first time ever, so I'm going to say 60 hours.
It's pretty natural.
They got some of those hot springs, which I love.
It's pretty natural. Okay. It's got its good and its bad, but it's pretty natural. It's a beautiful place. I love Arkansas. We go to the lake over there every year. Beautiful place. I got friends in Arkansas. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I got close friends who are Arkansas fans and Arkansas graduates, and they're excited. They are genuinely fired up. Like they do not think, we just took Kentucky's coach that Kentucky didn't want off Kentucky's hands. They think we just added the best coach in the conference, one of the best coaches of all time, and we're ready to start hanging banners in Bud Walton again. They're fired up, which is fun, because when, Arkansas basketball being good is fun, because that's, from my childhood, that was one of the biggest brands that existed.
No doubt about it. That Slobber Hog logo, that is just awesome, awesome stuff. Credit to everyone at Arkansas that helped make that happen. That's good stuff. Storyline 2, or technically Storyline 3, because we did Storyline 1. Mark Pope now at Kentucky replacing John Calipari. And there's a lot here. I also want to, since we're coming right off the weekend, the Rick Pitino returning. I mean, what an unbelievable, what's actually unbelievable, 5 months ago scene where you have Pitino, and I know most people listening and watching probably are aware of this. If you haven't seen Pitino's, 60-second speech at the end of Big Blue Madness on Friday night to everyone in Rupp Arena, go find it. In fact, Nada, can we do this in post? We can't do it live on the show because we didn't prep it. Nada, in post here for our audio audience listening on the pod, let's drop that Pitino speech in right now so people can hear what he said. And the fact that Pitino, I got a couple of thoughts on this, GP. The fact that he did it, and I know you agree with this, it is so amazing that the hatchet has mostly been buried, although I expressed that sentiment, and there were some Kentucky fans that were like, hell no, it hasn't. fair enough. But for a large portion, it has. But then the weirdness with the Louisville stuff that now still exists, I can't help but deny that part of it. And also, Pitino was on campus the entire week, and he went to the football game. He appeared on Kentucky Sports Radio with Matt Jones. He talked to the players at practice. There was another speech that Kentucky Athletics got where he was talking about Mark Pope as a player, and it was really, really good that Kentucky shared on its socials. But this also told me, and we'll save this part of it for the Big East preview. I'll be at Big East Media Day. We're going to do our preview for Big East then. The fact that Pitino was willing to do this, put on Kentucky gear, it tells me he's super confident in the St. John's team. That's my oh, by the way, aside, is like he knows he's got a really, really, really good team. He ain't concerned whatsoever about any of it, that side of it. So St. John's fans, if you saw that, we're kind of like tickled awkwardly by the scenes there. I think that tells you that he thinks he's going to have one of the best teams in the Big East and a team that's not even going to flirt with the bubble this season. Before we get to the Pope Kentucky stuff, let's at least address the Pitino stuff, because that was really just I was heartwarmed by it, GP. I
was too, genuinely. I loved it.
I never thought we'd get that. I never thought we would get that. And the fact that we have shows you just what can be possible in this wild world of college athletics.
Yeah, my perspective on this has always been, or at least for a while has been, perhaps it's something I've come to feel as I've gotten older myself, but life's too short to be walking around mad all the time. Like Rick Pitino gave Kentucky fans some of their greatest memories they'll ever have. And then, yeah, he took a job in the NBA. And then, yeah, he bounced back to your in-state rival, not necessarily because it was your in-state rival, but because it was the best job available at the time. But you get the point. So I understand, like, he was with us and then he left us and then he went to our enemy. So we'll hate that guy forever. But I just genuinely believe it should be much simpler than that. Rick Pitino worked at Kentucky and did amazing things at Kentucky. And then he was presented with an offer to run the Boston Celtics. So he said, I guess I got to go do that for a lot of money. And he went and did that, and it didn't go as perfectly as I'm sure he would have wanted or anticipated. So then it's like, I guess I'm going back to college basketball. Here's the Louisville job's open. I guess, that's the best job I could have. And so I'll take that one. And the truth is, I'm sure that Rick loved his time at Kentucky and also loved most of his time at Louisville. And I wish we would get to a place where both of those places would honor him and give him that moment, because what made me smile biggest was Rick's smile. That's a very successful, very wealthy man who's accomplished a ton of things. But I promise you, he would have paid millions of dollars for that feeling he had on Friday night. I'm glad he got to soak that up. As we just lost Pete Rose, one of the things a lot of people have said is that it's a real shame, regardless of how you feel about Pete Rose. I don't care. I'm just saying there are people out there who say it's a real shame that Pete Rose will never get that moment of being in Cooperstown, being inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I would have thought the similar things about Rick Pitino. Rick Pitino deserved to be back inside Rupp Arena, getting a standing ovation, having that moment and that memory. And I hope he gets the same type of thing at Louisvile someday.
Yes, but the fact that he spent more than twice as long at Louisville and now he's pissed off much of that fan base is also just.
That's the other thing.
Can't do anything without having some faction of people get really, really angry at him no matter what. And so that, as it was, GP, the fact that how these Louisville people turn around and be like, "What the hell, dude?"
Here's the thing, and this is where I just don't get caught up in it like that. Like if I bumped into Jacob deGrom tomorrow, I wouldn't be like, "You left us for the Rangers." I'd be like, "Man, you gave me some of my favorite memories of the past 10, 15 years. I really enjoyed watching you pitch for the Mets, and I'm glad you made a family decision at some point. And, I hope it works out. I just don't carry that stuff around with me. So the other night, as I'm watching it unfold on social media, because I had tweeted the video, and then, of course, my mentions are just all tied up in it. And you had, there was a range of replies. You had some Kentucky fans who were like, "I love this. It's bringing tears to my eyes." Other Kentucky fans who were like, "F that guy. He coached at Louisville for a long time." Right. Then you had Louisville fans who were like, "Yeah, F that guy. He was our coach, not the Kentucky coach." And then you had some St. John's fans who were like, "Yo,
what about us?"
It's
Incredible.
like turn on the TV and you see your husband with his ex-girlfriend, and you're like, "Whoa, why are you guys having so much fun together? I thought you were with me now." So, from a purely a sports fandom perspective, I get it. It's just I don't subscribe to any of it. That was a nice moment, and I'm glad that it happened.
Well, obviously, the reason this happens is because Kentucky hires Mark Pope, who played for
Of course.
Patino on the '96 championship team. And how it goes for Kentucky in year one under Pope, the vibes there are basically immaculate. The roster is pretty damn good. Kentucky, oh, by the way, 23rd in the AP Top 25 released here on Monday, all the way down at 42 in KenPom. I can't access the preseason KenPom data prior to like 2007, 2008. I don't know if he even had it. I believe this is the lowest preseason ranking in Kentucky history at KenPom there, which is a bit intriguing there. I think KenPom's lower on the Wildcats than just about anyone else, but we'll see. Pope at Kentucky, new blood. Just it will be very refreshing to see that program run by a different human being, just because it's a change in storyline, it's a change in pace, and I know you welcome it just as much as I do there, and especially after that Big Blue Madness, a lot of anticipation for the season ahead. Storyline 4, Alabama chasing a national title. You know, Florida, Kentucky, and Arkansas are the only SEC schools, GP, to make back-to-back Final Fours. And since 1999, or I guess 98, when Tubby took them there to make it 3 straight years for UK, speaking of Patino, the SEC has had consecutive years in the Final Four in 06-07, Florida, 11-12, Kentucky, and then 14-15, Florida and Kentucky. So can Alabama do this coming off the Final Four appearance there with Sears as the head of the snake there? Its prominence in the league, I think, is a distinguished national story, because while I think there are a lot of teams that are in that Final Four conversation, or if you want to dial it just a little back, that Elite Eight conversation, I think fairly Alabama has separated itself as the favorite in the league. Now, there have been some Auburn fans in the chat, and don't worry, I know Tigers fans have already found me because they saw our SEC preview on CBSSports.com, which will, of course, be linked in this episode description on the podcast in your feed. But to me, I think even if you're super high on Auburn, I think even GP would agree with this. You would have the Tide on a tier to themselves, right?
Well, I'll just reference the top 25 and 1. I have Alabama at number 2 and Auburn as the next best SEC team at number 10. So I've got Alabama at least 8 spots better than everybody else in the SEC. As always, we'll see, but they look like the favorite on paper. First off, they got an incredibly accomplished and gifted coach, right? I mean, that's the first part of it. They got one of the best coaches in the country. And then they got maybe the best player in the country. We'll see. Mm-hmm. In Mark Sears. And then they're old in the starting lineup. They can bring a 5-star freshman off the bench. Like when you are looking for legitimate championship contenders and you make a list of things that need to be evident for it to work, great coach, experience, roster retention, some real NBA talent. They got all that. They check every box. I have Kansas number 1 in the top 25 and 1. Kansas also number 1 in the AP poll. But if you told me we're sitting in wherever we're going to be sitting for the Final Four, is it Phoenix this time? Where are we going?
Come on, man.
No, we just went to Phoenix, didn't we? Yeah, where are we going?
Trivia time. Where's the 2025?
San Antonio. San Antonio.
San Antonio is the answer.
Yeah. If you told me we're sitting in San Antonio watching Nate Oates cut nets after a national championship, that's not crazy to me at all.
Yeah, I like this team a lot. I'll share a couple stats on them once we get to our tournament rundown there, but safe to say, very intriguing. And they may or may not be my number 1 team. I'll tell you, they were heavily considered, and that will be revealed on Thursday. You mentioned Kansas. Our Big 12 preview will be next, and that'll be coming to you before too long here on the feed and obviously here on YouTube. Last storyline, I usually try and put in the coaching changes situation here. I tell you what. So one function of the cycle this past season and earlier this year, GP, is we had so much turnover. We had more coaching changes at the high major level and across the sport than we had ever seen in a single offseason in the history of the sport. Okay. And so because of that, what it's led to is a lot of coaches now, because not just this year, but then you think about the year before and the year before that. So there are a lot of coaches that coming into November here, they're either in year 1, year 2, or year 3 at their school. There's not a lot of forget veteran coaches, just aren't a lot of coaches at the high major level who are, in their 6th or 7th or 8th year there. And so because of that, it doesn't lend itself to heavy turnover. And the SEC is a great example of that for the reasons I just laid out and the reasons we talked about at the top of the show when we're expecting this to be an incredible season for the conference with so many good teams. So with that in mind, how many hot seat coaches are really here? If Oklahoma doesn't do well, could Porter Moser maybe be there? Yeah, I could see that. If Rick Barnes does well or not, could you see Rick Barnes retire? Sure. That could be there. That could be something that I'd be open to. If Texas severely underachieved with Rodney Terry, might there be a situation there? I've had a few people, talk to me about this in the offseason where Texas can't, RT, the way he got the job, some people aren't all the way in on him being the head coach. Now, he's done a solid job since he got there, but if they were to say miss the tournament, I guess, sure, but he's not a hot seat candidate going into the season. Point is, I would put the over-under on coaching change in the SEC, a 16-school league now, GP. I think I'd put it at 2.5, and I really might go under. I don't see a lot. I don't see the potential for a lot of coaching change from this year to next year. As always, wait and see. But I actually don't think this league is going to have a lot of swappage by the time we get to March.
Yeah, I don't either. I would probably take the under on that as well. Let's just run through my SEC projections. Alabama ain't making a coaching change unless, they have to replace Nate because he just went to the NBA or something.
Yeah.
Same thing. Auburn is going to want to keep its coach no matter what. Texas A&M, I think, wants to keep its coach no matter what. Arkansas, obviously. Rick Barnes has been consistently good at Tennessee. No chance he's on the hot. He could bomb this season, still be fine. I guess what you said about Rodney is, but it's not like he's run this thing into the ground or anything like that.
Yep.
It hasn't become embarrassing or, they're still projected to be an NCAA tournament team this year. Assuming they are, he's fine.
Yep.
At Florida, still too early, isn't it?
Way too. He just made the tournament. Even if Florida, I think Florida is going to make the tournament with ease. But even if they didn't,
they're fine. Yeah, so they're fine at Florida. Obviously, we're fine at Kentucky. Ole Miss has got a top 25 team with Chris Beard. They're thrilled. Mississippi State's going to be good again.
Made the tournament the past 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, they're fine. I mean, somebody's going to finish 16th, and then we might have to talk about them. But most of these coaches enter the season, and you just say, man, as long as you don't finish 15th, 16th, you probably ain't got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if for some reason, Mike White's got a team that needs to make some noise, I'm not saying it's going to finish top 5, but it's got to be in the tournament picture. If Georgia was 15th, then maybe we're having a conversation there. But, even if, LSU, I don't think is going to be that good, but I don't think they're getting rid of their they're not getting rid of their coach. I wouldn't think so anyway. Missouri, if they bombed out again, I still don't think that they would fire Dennis Gates this quickly. So I think there's a lot of stability within the league, and this conference could have less change for firings or retirements than any conference in the country. That being said, let's get into.
Well, let me say one thing there, because I guess at Missouri, if they really.
I mean, they didn't win a game last year in the league.
Here's what I would say about the Missouri situation. If they would have moved Dennis after last year, I would have said that's crazy, because he's got a track record of running a Division I college basketball program, and it's almost all good except for last year. I would have, if somebody would have asked me, what do you do with the SEC coach who went winless in the league? I'd say you bring him back and hope that was just because the alternative is do what Vandy did, and they've never really recovered from firing Bryce Drew.
Right.
So I would not have even thought about moving Dennis after last year. I would not recommend doing that again. I don't think they're going to do that again, but I don't think you can survive 2 of those.
That would be tough. And I think Missouri has to be better than it was last season. I don't know. I don't have Missouri. Spoiler here. We're going to reveal our teams right now. I don't have Missouri making the tournament, but I definitely have it better than it was last year. I'm going to say, so NCAA tournament over under, I have it at 9.5 for the SEC. The conference record is 8 teams. Done it 3 times, by the way, since 2018. I don't think 9.5 is too low, is it?
I'll take the over right now. I'll take the over. I'm going with 10. I'm going one less than Jerry Palm. I got 10. Alabama, Auburn, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas, Florida, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Mississippi State.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 9, but my 10th I'm not happy about keeping out here. All right, so I've got Bama at 1 with a 1 seed. Grant Nelson's back. Latrell Wrightsell is back. Jaron Stevenson is back. They're all good players. They picked up Chris Youngblood from South Florida, a key transfer, Cliff Amori from Rutgers, a big-time presence down low after they didn't get Jonas Adu, who went to Arkansas. And then Aiden Holloway, here's what I love about Bama. They have so many pieces, and then I wonder if Aiden Holloway just becomes like this dynamic, not one of a kind, but just they have the kind of guy off the bench that no one else in the league kind of has, and he's even better than he was in his first year at Auburn, which he wasn't quite as impactful as maybe they were hoping. We'll wait and see. They got 2 5-star freshmen ready as well. I think Bama's got to be right there. Tennessee, I have second in the conference this season. They had the second best player in the sport last season. They lose him. They lose a lot, but I will go. Tennessee fans, I am going to ride with Rick Barnes. He gets it done. Zakai Ziegler, can he be a top 5 point guard in the country? I think it's reasonable.
I've seen him pop on some All-American preseason list.
I think that's reasonable, GP. Now, I am putting Tennessee second with this in mind. Chaz Lanier, who Kentucky also really, really wanted. He's not going to be Dalton Connect, but he shot 44% from 3 last season for North Florida. And they are going to want him to step in, and he won't, he averaged almost 20 a game. I think Lanier can be like a 14 point a game guy for Tennessee. He'll be big. They got Felix Oxpar from Ohio State, which will be huge in replacing Adu, because there are some things that Oxpar does that's even better than what Adu did. So I think he's a guy who will threaten to average like 3 blocks a game. And then Jordan Gainey comes back. He's solid. JP Estrella, Tennessee fans know who this guy is, but he was really good on the recruiting trail. I think he's going to have a breakout season. I'll go Tennessee second. I got Kentucky third. I think Kentucky will genuinely be 9 deep. Knock on wood. They avoid injuries. I've been vocal about this since Pope was building it out. We were doing podcasts in May and June and all that stuff, GP. I really like Kentucky's chances in this league with Pope and his offense. You remember what he did with last year, BYU into the Big 12. So I've got them third. I will have Florida fourth. I think they're not a sleeper to win the league. I actually don't think their ceiling is to win the league, but I think that they will be the kind of team that gets undervalued consistently all season long. Walter Clayton Jr. is back. He's going to easily make our top 101 players list. Will Richard is back in the backcourt. Alex Condon as a big. All those guys played 20-plus minutes a game last season. They bring in Elijah Martin from FAU, who I'm really, really big on. And with him now in the fold defensively, I think that's huge. Thomas Hall as a sophomore is going to break out. I think it's an interesting year ahead for Florida. I think their ceiling is probably, I've got them fifth. I've got them fourth. I think that's their ceiling. Their floor is probably 11th, but I'll buy high on them. I've got Arkansas after that for reasons we established. And then I have Auburn. Now, to Auburn fans that are going to lose their minds over this, let me remind you that I was the guy, and Arkansas fans can speak to this. Everyone was huge in on Arkansas a year ago. And boy, did I just take it. I mean, I was buried under a mountain of crap. And then I put Arkansas like 47th in the country when Arkansas fans were convinced they were a top 20 team. Well, let's see where Arkansas finished last year.
Okay, Norlander, show your receipts.
See how that went.
Arkansas
was 108 at Ken Pom.
Okay.
I look at the Auburn roster. I have them easily making the tournament in a very, very good league. Janai Broom, tremendous player, no doubt about it. Averaged 16.5 points, 8.5 boards, 2.2 assists and boards, shot 55%. Really, really good team. Chad Baker-Mazar is back. Denver Jones. They're good players. They should be double-digit scorers. They get JP Pegues in from Furman. He's solid. I think he's going to be a nice contributing piece. EvanMia.com ranks this transfer class 70th in the country, second worst in the SEC. I think Auburn's ceiling is third in the SEC, but I think its floor is closer to where I have it, like 8th overall. To me, the SEC is so stacked that projecting out the 1 through 8 feels a little bit tricky there, Alabama aside. And this won't be a signal to Auburn not being as good as Auburn fans want it to be. The schedule is just, I think we mentioned this on the shoot-around show. Bruce Pearl went out and he has a monster non-conference schedule. So they are going to take on some losses there. I still believe in Auburn, but I'm, I every year I try and intentionally find teams that I believe in and go higher on them, and take a few teams that I feel like might be a little bit buzzy, but I look at the roster and it just doesn't click for me. I could well be wrong, but Auburn's a team that I'm easily having into the tournament with a single-digit seed. I'm just fading on them relative to the rest of the country there. I think Auburn fans were a little beside themselves by some of the voting that was happening elsewhere. And I get that. You're super excited. You should be. Pearl's an amazing coach, but I will fade them a little bit.
It's just when you're an Auburn fan and you've watched your program run by Bruce Pearl finish in the top 4 of the SEC in 5 of the past 7 years, you just assume that when somebody says nope, not this time, that they don't know what they're talking about, and or they're a hater.
I might be a hater.
You sound like a real hater to me.
I'm an Auburn hater. What do you want from me? Auburn fans, I got you like with the 16 and 25.
I love it. I love it when you get tweets like that. Like I got one the other day, and it was just something like this. Well, Parrish has always hated Clemson.
Oh, everyone knows that.
It's like, what?
Everyone knows that, though.
Like I'm just sitting around at home being like, let's go Mets and F Clemson.
Yeah,
like, what?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
Absolutely. I've got Texas after that. Texas lost a ton too, but some good buzz coming out of Austin in the preseason about that team. I think Trey Johnson he's not even a sleeper pick. Like I think Trey Johnson's got a chance, maybe to lead all freshmen in scoring and points per game. So I'm big on him. Caden Shedrick's had a really good offseason. Arthur Kaluma, Tremont Mark are big time transfers in. Like that's a really good roster, and I even have that behind Auburn there. And then I have Texas A&M. I talk about my big swings. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't. I was super in on A&M a year ago. Top 10 team. They weren't that whatsoever. Obviously, they got a 9 seed, 21 wins. Wade Taylor the fourth is back. I have this in my capsule for my top 101. I almost wonder, though, if it becomes the Wade Taylor the fourth show more often than it needs to be, and if that doesn't really hurt A&M in the big picture. I like them to make the tournament and be a top half of the league team, but I don't know if I'm that in on them. They are high in the KenPom rankings. I think they're top 15 overall. I've got Georgia making the tournament. Silas Demery is super underrated and a really good defender. Asa Newell is a freshman that's coming in, their highest ranked one since Anthony Edwards. So I like Mike White to get there. And that's who I have in. So Bama 1, Tennessee 2, Kentucky 3, Florida 4, Arkansas 5, Auburn 6, Texas 7, A&M 8, Georgia 9. I've got Mississippi basically being the first team out of the tournament, but I think you're going to be right and I'm going to be wrong. I think we're going to get to Selection Sunday, and I think the SEC is going to have 10 teams in the field. So I got Mississippi, which lost a lot of presence down low. I want to see more from their front court. That's why I want
to see more from your front court.
I don't have a front court. I'm just a man. What do you want from me?
Keep saying that. Keep saying that.
So
you don't have Ole Miss, and it's Ole Miss. We're not Mississippi.
I know we do this every year.
This is Ole Miss,
University of Mississippi. What do you want from me?
Like you say that down here.
I know.
They'll look at you funny. They'll say, "What's that?"
If that's all I get, then I'll be appreciated.
Yeah,
that's all.
You don't have Ole Miss or Mississippi State in the field?
I don't. I think the league is going to be so competitive that it is inevitable that teams that are projected to make the tournament in the preseason wind up missing out, and we'll have surprise teams that jump in and take their place. Yeah.
Are you holding our obesity rate against us down here in Mississippi? We have
nothing to do with the obesity rate.
We have one of the worst. Admittedly, we have one of the worst obesity rates, but one of the also worst, but highest team pregnancy rates.
Okay.
We're not.
I didn't take any of those things into account or factor them in whatsoever when assembling my ranking.
Team pregnancy has nothing to do. Team pregnancy rates has nothing to do with why you're leaving both Ole Miss and Mississippi State out of the field.
That's correct.
Okay.
Nothing to do with it whatsoever.
I just wanted to clarify. That's all. I just wanted to clarify.
I tell you what, Mississippi State trivia time.
Okay.
It's going for a third straight NCAA tournament appearance.
Yep.
How many times in school history has Mississippi State made at least 3 NCAA tournaments?
As many times as they wanted to.
And how many times was that?
Twice.
Once.
Rick Stansberry.
Correct. 02 to 05. How about that? And Josh Hubbard,
fun player. Fun player. Great.
Very fun player. Just a 5'9" baller.
I should say. I don't know if he's great, but he's fun.
He's a lot of fun. And
he's great.
They got Cameron Matthews back there. I have that. So I have Ole Miss 10. I have Mississippi State 11. I've got Missouri 12. They got Mark Mitchell from Duke, by the way, in the portal. Tony Perkins from Iowa. Josh Gray from South Carolina. Missouri's going to be better. I have them outside the tournament picture, but
actually impossible for them not to be.
They can't not be better. They will be better. South Carolina is the one that I'm even further down on. There are a few teams in this sport that might not be tournament worthy. Maybe South Carolina will be. I don't know, but I don't think so. But Colin Murray Boyles, it could be one of the best players on a just okay team in the entire country. He will be must watch.
And then be one of the only non-freshman, non-international players selected in the first round.
That bada bing. So, and the fact that Colin Murray Boyles, just I love it. I love the juxtaposition of South Carolina having a dude named Colin Murray Boyles being an absolute baller, man. That's incredible.
You just promised me this. You just promised me this. When
Yeah.
number 7 Ole Miss is playing number 14 Mississippi State at the Pavilion in Oxford, you'll come on down and I'll take you down there.
Yeah, if we can get that cleared for travel and expenses,
Yeah.
if there's a top 15 matchup in Oxford this season, let's make it happen.
Okay, if there's that's the deal. If there's a top 15 matchup between the Bulldogs and the Rebels in Oxford,
I don't think
that
that's
Yankee
happening,
Norlander has to come down here and witness
the
it
old
with his
Yank.
own eyes.
The old Yank. That's me.
I don't know if they like your kind down here too much.
That has many interpretations. I have Oklahoma next. Man, they got a lot of old dudes, but this is the part where it just doesn't get fun. I say that every preview episode. But you got all these teams, and it's like Oklahoma 14th, I guess. Matt McMahon, LSU, I have at 15th. He's in year 3. Who the hell knows GP? And then I've got Vanderbilt taking up the caboose there. AJ Hogarth's the most notable name on that roster, previously at Michigan State there. But I've got 9 in the tournament. You've got 10. Let's see. How many teams do we agree on in terms of their finish? I'm going to bring up our SEC preview right now from the site and see if I can figure this out. You fill the space while I do this.
I've got mine sitting right here in front of me. So we're going to agree on number 1, Alabama.
Correct.
But then I go number 2, Auburn, and you've got Auburn finishing
that ain't true.
38th in the SEC. You've got Auburn finishing 61st in the league.
That's not true, but they will be better than 61st.
Slightly behind Delta.
In my rankings, I promise you that.
Slightly behind. You've got Auburn slightly behind.
Wow,
Delta
you've got
State
A&M.
University.
You've got A&M 3rd.
Sorry for believing in Buzz Williams and the 4th.
Well, I am sorry for believing in Buzz Williams 1 year later, because this is what I did a year ago. You're about to find out.
We've been making Wade Taylors for a long time. It took us 4 of them to get an SEC Player of the Year candidate, but the 4th version of Wade Taylor plus Buzz Williams, that's a top 3 team in the SEC.
Dude, I'm looking at it right now. We don't agree on any other team in the final placement of this league. Alabama's it. We agree on Alabama, and no other team do we have in the same spot in our predictions.
Let's argue about it then. You want to argue? Let's argue.
No, I don't. I think that's actually pretty intriguing. How about that?
I do think this is true about the SEC. Alabama should be everybody's favorite. Like if you put somebody else as the favorite, you might be right because, it's basketball. Who knows? But you're not making a correct decision based on any of the data that's available. Alabama should be number 1. After that, you could tell me, I'll be serious for a second, then I'll get back to joking about Ole Miss and Mississippi State. You could tell me Auburn finished 2nd or 9th. And, okay. It's not crazy. Neither one of those things is crazy to me. You could tell me Texas A&M could finish 2nd or 7th. Nothing crazy. Arkansas could finish 1st or 8th. Okay, I could see it. I do think after Alabama, it's a pretty jumbled up thing.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun to chronicle the entire season because we're going to have results, winning streaks, losing streaks that really jumble our perception of the league, and frankly, that's what makes it so much fun there. But looking at you, Bama, Auburn, A&M, Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas, Florida, you've always hated Clemson and you've always hated Kentucky. You got Mark Pope down at 8th in the SEC right now.
That was before he brought out Rick.
That's gonna change. That changes it all.
Yes, that would have moved him up clearly to 7th.
It really might make maybe it does make a difference. I don't know. Man, oh
yeah,
man.
so I've got 7 SEC schools in the top 25 and 1 without Kentucky. Kentucky would be my 8th, but just on the wrong side of the top 25 and 1. But if we look up in January and Kentucky's ranked 14th in the country, I can see that. I can that team has the potential to make me go at some point. Yeah, I probably should have had them in the top 25 and 1 in the preseason. I like the team. I've got them in the NCAA tournament, just on the outside of the top 25 and 1.
All right, let's do our awards here. Player of the year, the Poi, the Foy, and the Toy. Player, freshman, transfer of the year. Player of the year, I think we're in agreement entirely.
Yeah, I went Mark Sears.
Yes.
Janai Broome
He's in there.
could end up holding the trophy at the end. Wade Taylor, the 4th, could end up holding the trophy at the end. I like Johnell Davis at Arkansas. Could end up holding a trophy at the end, but October 14, 2024, Mark Sears should be considered the favorite. He was incredible in that NCAA tournament and was never going to catch Zach Edey because nobody else was ever going to catch Zach Edey for Player of the Year. But I think if you waited until every game in the college basketball season was played and then said who was the second best player in college basketball this season, I think you would have landed on Mark Sears at Alabama.
Yeah, we'll have more to say on Sears once we get to our episode on our preseason awards, but safe to say I'm in agreement there. Freshman of the year, I'm going with Trey Johnson out of Texas in this league. There's obviously talent, but a lot of this talent in the conference is very transfer heavy. We talked about the ACC last week, and that was not the case there. The SEC has a lot of transfers that are going to matter there. We'll get to our transfer of the year in just a second. But freshman of the year, I believe Trey Johnson is the highest ranked prospect incoming into the SEC as well. I didn't pick because of that. I picked because I think that his offensive skill set is going to prove vital to Texas. I think he's going to be a big reason why Texas has a lot of flash and gets a really comfortable NCAA tournament seed. You're even higher on Texas than I am. Is Trey Johnson also your freshman of the year pick for the SEC GP?
Yeah, and I'll be transparent. I'm relying a little bit on the 24/7 guys here. Like they clearly make him the best incoming freshman in the SEC at number 6 in the class of 2024. Reed at Alabama is number 17. But I just don't know what his role is going to be exactly, whereas I know Trey Johnson is going to have to play at Texas. And I know Boogie Flan's going to have to play at Arkansas. So if I were ranking them, I'd go Johnson, Flan, Reed. But yeah, Trey Johnson should be the SEC Freshman of the Year.
All right, and transfer of the year, I'm going to go with a guy that we're going to release our top 101 players next week, and the list is just about finalized. I don't know if he's going to break through on the list, but I actually think he's going to be the most impactful and important transfer to me. I'm going to go Elijah Martin at Florida. I think defensively he's going to be their best player, and I think he's going to be good on given nights to go for 20 plus a game. I think he's undervalued. I think he got outshined a little bit by Johnell Davis at FAU last year. I've been big on him for a while. I just find him to be a very reliable player. This was a very, very tough call, but when I looked around at the teams that I thought would finish top 4, top 5 in the conference, unlike the ACC, where I think a transfer on a team outside that top 6 is going to wind up being a huge producer and be the transfer of the year. In the SEC, I actually think it's going to be a pretty prominent player on a single-digit NCAA tournament team. Tough call, but I will go with Elijah. What about yourself?
I'll go with Johnell Davis at Arkansas. I believe I put him third-team All-American when I submitted my ballot for preseason All-America teams. He's been a very good college player for back-to-back NCAA tournament teams, one of which obviously went to the Final Four. John's done a nice job at Arkansas building that roster into something that can compete in what might be the toughest league in the country in year one. Like that's not many. We'll see what happens. Not many coaches could build a team overnight that can compete in this league. John's done it. And going out and getting Johnell Davis is a big part of that.
I thought about Johnell Davis. You and I both have guys who played for Dusty May last year on FAU, by the way. I've seen Johnell Davis. He's a really good player. There have been undeniably moments where he has cost his team games, and he does a lot of what DJ Wagner does. And I just want to see when they actually get going in these games, like how prominent of a role will Wagner play? How prominent a role will Fland have? That's the thing that made me pause on that. And then also, like I considered Jackson Robinson at Kentucky, but could Andrew Carr wind up scoring more points for Kentucky? It was kind of a tough call there. And then, Lanier, will he wind up being as effective of a scorer there? There's a lot of options here. I would definitely, if you're listening, I would take the field versus GP in my picks just because there's so many good transfers. So if it's one of the FAU dudes or the rest of the field in the SEC, I think it's more likely the field happens there. But there's a lot of good talent, a lot of intrigue, and countdown is on officially. 3 weeks from now, we will have college basketball games, GP.
Woohoo!
Let's go.
Woohoo! Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle, legend. Huck, Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching and listening to the Ion College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts. Apple, Spotify. There's more of us than there are of them. That should be reflected in the comments. So please do that, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Till then, take care.